Hello YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, with my Week 1 2015 NFL predictions. I am excited to be back for another season doing these prediction videos. It's been almost 7 months, or it's been over 7 months since I have done these videos, and I am extremely excited to be doing these once again. This is the second year I've done this on this channel, and this is about the 8th year I've been doing these videos overall. So for everybody out there that's subscribers, hopefully you all guys can all come back and appreciate my views on games and my picks. And before I get started, I just like to mention that I do all these prediction videos for fun. I'm an avid NFL fan, and I like giving people my thoughts on my picks on all these games. Anybody that has any negative comments about my picks in an insultful way, or any negative comments about me, or you just don't like what I have to say, you know, it's very easy. It's easy. Just go to another video, just mute me, or make your own videos. If you don't like people's opinions, or you don't like my opinion, make videos to represent your own opinions to other people, and maybe you'll get your own base of fans that completely agree with what you're saying. You're gonna have people that don't like. Nobody can like everybody's perspective. That has never happened in anybody's life. Well, my thing is that if you don't like any of the stuff I say, don't put any insulting stuff about me or anything that I do. Just go on to another video. You know, block me from users, okay? So you don't have to hear me if you don't want to. Or make your own videos and make your own opinions, so you can get your own following that buy into your stuff. Which I'm absolutely for, because everybody that's on YouTube, from the big giants to people like me, we're all wanting to, you know, voice our opinions and present our stuff to everybody out there in the world that watches. And we enjoy doing it as fun activity for great discussion. So there's my little thought on that. And then to everybody out there, new viewers, old viewers, I'm going to do the same format I did last year. I'm going to go through each game very quickly and give each pick, and then I'm going to go in depth on each pick after I'm done all of them. So again, for everybody out there that just wants a quick video, just about the next few minutes, I'll get this over with, and then you can go on. But if you want to hear my thoughts on each game, just stick around for the whole video. So without further ado, time for my picks. This Thursday, September 10th, the first game of the year, when the Pittsburgh Steelers go to Gillette Stadium to take on the defending champions, New England Patriots, I am taking the New England Patriots. On Sunday, when the Kansas City Chiefs go to the Houston Texans, I am taking the Kansas City Chiefs. When the Indianapolis Colts go to the Buffalo Bills, I am taking the Indianapolis Colts. When the Green Bay Packers go to the Chicago Bears, I am taking the Green Bay Packers. When the Carolina Panthers go to the Jacksonville Jaguars, I am taking the Carolina Panthers. When the Cleveland Browns go to the New York Jets, I am taking the New York Jets. When the Miami Dolphins go to the Washington Redskins, I am taking the Miami Dolphins. When the Seattle Seahawks go to the St. Louis Rams, I am taking the Seattle Seahawks. When the Detroit Lions go to the San Diego Chargers, I am taking the Detroit Lions. When the New Orleans Saints go to the Arizona Cardinals, I am taking the Arizona Cardinals. When the Cincinnati Bengals go to the Oakland Raiders, I am taking the Cincinnati Bengals. When the Baltimore Ravens go to the Denver Broncos, I am taking the Denver Broncos. When the Tennessee Titans go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I am taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When the New York Giants go to the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, I am taking the Dallas Cowboys. And then on Monday night, when the Philadelphia Eagles go to the Atlanta Falcons, I am taking the Philadelphia Eagles. And then when the Minnesota Vikings go to the San Francisco 49ers, I'm taking the Minnesota Vikings. Alright, time for my thoughts. Pittsburgh at New England. This game really came down to me to one aspect. And it came down to the Deflategate decision. If Tom Brady was going to play, I was going to take the Patriots. If he was not going to play, I was going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's how I really look at this game. I look at both teams both secondaries have a lot to prove. I really couldn't give an edge to either secondary. Of course, Darrell Revis, Brandon Browner, and Alfonso Denard, Kyle Arrington all left New England, while Troy Polamalu and Ike Taylor both left Pittsburgh. They don't have Jason Worlds. They don't have they don't have Jason Worlds. They lost Dick LeBeau, their longtime defensive coordinator, who is now the defensive coordinator for the Titans. And I just look at it and say that if I had to go with this game, because again, Le'Veon Bell will be suspended 2 games. LeGarrette Blount suspended for this game, so they're both going with their backup running backs. It'd probably be D'Angelo Williams taking out Brandon Bolden. Pittsburgh's a little more hurt. That's one of the reasons, because also they don't have hurt and they have to deal with more suspensions. Marquise Pouncey is out for about 8 weeks at least with his ankle, and then Martavius Bryant suspended the first 4 games due to his first violation of the substance abuse policy. So again, when you look at this game, I think it's an even crapshoot basically for the most part, because I really can't adjust either way from both sides. Pittsburgh has a little bit of a better wide receiving core, even with Antonio Brown and maybe Wheaton, because again, Julian Edelman might not play, and Brandon LaFell is on the pup, and then you're going into Aaron Dobson, Brian Timms is hurt. So when it comes down to this kind of game, I just go down to the quarterback. And again, at home, and I think again the New England Patriots, they're going to get one of the loudest reactions they've ever had in the history of Gillette Stadium. I have to take Brady over Bet. That's what it came down to, because I really can't judge either way with the running backs, the wide receivers, because they're both about the same. I really can't, equally judge either way. But again, came down to the quarterback to me. Brady is playing, so I'm going to take Brady to beat the Steelers Week 1 to see how this is going to handle out. But I do think Pittsburgh can put up a fight. I will say that. So that's why I'm hanging the Patriots over the Steelers. Kansas City and Houston, kind of another similar story. You have Kansas City with additions of Jerry Maclin. They re-signed Justin Houston to a 6-year, $100 million contract. You have them getting Eric Berry back, which is huge, which I think. You have Eric Fisher just lost his left tackle job. This just happened today. He lost to another guy, and he's not going to move the right tackle. You have Alex Smith and that team trying to score an offensive or a throwing touchdown for the first time in over a year. And I look at this game and I kind of see the same thing. Both defenses are very loaded. You have solid secondaries, not phenomenal secondaries, but you got Jonathan Joseph. Kansas City won't be out with Sean Smith because after 3 games, but I think Marcus Peters could be effective. The safeties about equal. Parker, Kareem Jackson. They lost Kendrick Lewis to the Ravens, which I think will be big. But it comes down to, I think, again, you have 2 offensive lines. You have 2 quality players. Houston might have a little bit of a better edge there. KC has the biggest advantage at quarterback and running back. And I think that's what I'm taking here. I'll take Alex Smith over Brian Hoyer, and I'll take Jamal Charles over whoever they have in Houston. Even though Arian Foster did not end up going on the IR for recall, which is big, so they said he might come back in a month, which will be huge for Texans fans, because I think that'll be the biggest thing that will help them get to a level like they had last year. And also, I just think that, again, KC just has a better vibe to it. They have this kind of feeling of they've beaten better teams. Houston really didn't impress a lot. They beat the Giants and the Raiders and the Redskins. They beat the Jaguars twice. They beat the Titans twice. So again, a lot of their wins weren't really that good, and they really didn't play any solid teams. I'm not saying that they didn't get better, but at least Kansas City last year beat New England. They beat San Diego. They beat Seattle. They beat a lot more quality teams. They were competitive against Denver. So when it comes down to that, that's why I'm thinking Kansas City to beat Houston. I just think, again, Kansas City has 2 key advantages that I don't think Houston can match. And I know it's at home, and you can say, well, you could put up the home points. But no, I'm going to take the road team on this one just because Kansas City is more well-equipped with talent than Houston is right now. And I'm going to take that over the Texans. So that's what I'm taking, the Chiefs over the Texans. Colts over Bills. This is a great game. It's a offensive-driven team versus a defensive-driven team. You got Andrew Luck with his new weapons of Phillip Dorsett, T.Y. Hilton. Well, no, it's not T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton got a 5-year extension for $65 million. I do not think he's worth that much. I think he's worth about 10 to 11 at most, but, kudos for him for breaking the bank. You have Andre Johnson coming from the Texans. Yeah, Frank Gore now, as the running back. I think that'll be great. You still have Boom Herron and Tipton there as other quality backs, especially for a 32-year-old running back. He needs maybe a little less of a workload. On defense, you still have Vontae Davis. You added Trent Cole. You added Kendall Langford. You added Nate Irving. You had a lot of solid defensive guys. You had C.O. Moore from that 6th-round pick from the Colts. And then on the Bills, they added, they have Rex Ryan now as their coach. And with that front seven, that's going to be a nasty defensive line with Mario Williams, Jerry Hughes. Congrats on his new contract. Kyle Williams, Marcel Darius, even though he will not play this game due to a 1-game suspension himself. But what it comes down to me is that I think that Indy's offensive line, which is the worst part of their team, I think that, Andrew Luck with his mobility and Rex's ability to blitz, I just don't trust Buffalo's corners to hold up against the receivers they have to battle. And I think, again, if Indy, if Buffalo sends blitzes, I think, Andre going up against guys like, they don't have McKelvin, they have guys like Darby and Gilmore. If you're putting up against an Andre and a T.Y., I'll take their receivers any day of the week over those guys. And also, I just, congrats for Tyrod Taylor on winning the job. I'm just not sold on Tyrod Taylor being, for this game, I'm not sold that he can win this game. If he can beat Andrew Luck his first game, it's a huge testament to him. And maybe we should give Tyrod Taylor more credit than we're already giving him right now. Again, this is a big opportunity for him. I'm happy for him, former Raven. Happy he got signed by Rex. Again, he took a very cheap deal. He's only probably making about $1 million this year. But again, if he can prove himself, I know he'll definitely want to restructure his deal, especially what all the quarterbacks are making. But I don't think he gets his first win at home. I think, again, Indy's just way more talented. They have better perspective. I think Andrew Luck is more prepared to go with the weapons he has against Rex Ryan's blitz defense than Tyrod Taylor does with his weapons against Chuck Pagano's defense. So that's how I'm taking the Colts to beat the Bills. Green Bay at Chicago. I'm taking Green Bay just based on the fact of, Aaron Rodgers. I know the Packers, they've had a rough offseason. They lost Jordy Nelson to a torn ACL in the third preseason game against Pittsburgh, which nobody cared about. Randall Cobb has an AC sprain in his shoulder, but he looks like he'll be ready to play. Brian Bulaga, their left tackle, sprained his ankle. They lost Devon House to the Jaguars. They lost Trevon Williams to the Browns. They gained not that much, overall talent on the defensive side. Then also Troy Guion. Troy Guion's not going to be for the first 3 games for his marijuana suspension. But again, I just feel that even though Green Bay is dealing with injuries, Chicago's dealing with injuries themselves. Chicago will not, they've had their own issues. Brandon Marshall was no longer there, which I never quite understood. He is the leader of that team, and the fact that you just traded him away for a 5th-round draft pick speaks volumes to what kind of culture that they wanted. But I don't think that was the right move because now Jay Cutler has no voice that can get in his face and hold him accountable for any of his actions. But then on top of that, they don't have Kevin White, their 5th overall pick, their 5th overall pick in the draft, and he'll be on the pup for the first 6 weeks. So that means if you can double team Alshon Jeffrey, that leaves Eddie Royal as the number 2 wide receiver, and then everybody else has to move up from there. And I just don't trust Eddie Royal at all being a number 2 wide receiver. He is not that good to be a number 2 wide receiver. And I think Bennett, he's a little bit above average tight end, but he's not going to make that much of a difference. And also, I don't. It goes back to Jay Cutler. I'm not a Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler's had a lot of chances, but he's just a tangible quarterback with no intangibles. He can throw the ball well, but I don't think he cares who he throws it to. He can't really inspire people to say, we have Jay Cutler and we're proud of it. No, they're not proud of it. And again, I don't think he's ever beaten Green Bay in Chicago. I don't think ever in his career. I think he has 1 or 2 wins. One of them was in Green Bay, but that was when Rodgers broke his collarbone. And I forget the other one. But that might have been in Green Bay as well. So I don't really see how Chicago does not lose this game. I think the only thing that Green Bay might get affected by is that I do not think they will go to the Super Bowl without Jordy Nelson. I will say that. And also, just one last thing, Chicago has no corners. They let Tim Jennings go and they let Charles Tillman go. That means Kyle Fuller is their #1 corner. And again, he showed some flashes, but he showed a lot of rookie in him too. So I'm not buying into that. And also, I respect that Packer team enough that they're going to be able to get to a good start by beating up this tough Bears team. And by the way, for the Bears fans, sorry for your schedule. My gosh, that's a rough schedule to begin the year with. So good luck with that. So that's what I'm taking the Packers to beat the Bears. Carolina at Jacksonville. I'm taking Carolina, kind of just on the same thing with Green Bay with this, with Chicago. I think, again, Carolina's dealt with a lot of problems. Stephen Hill, wide receiver they cut him. They also cut Jericho Cotchery. They brought back Ted Ginn. They also lost D'Angelo Williams to Pittsburgh. Their secondary, I think they lost Kirk Coleman, or that might have been the year before. But their secondary, they still have Melvin White, and they brought in Charles Tillman, but again, you don't know if it's injuries. He's had 2 season-ending injuries back the last 2 years, so how much can you get out of him? But when you look at it, just again, Cam getting his contract extension, he earned it, but it was something where everybody else, it wasn't because of his resume, it was because everybody else had got contracts that were just as good as him or worse than he was. So, but when I look at this game, to get back to the game, Carolina just has more talent. I trust their tight ends better than Jacksonville's. Their receivers I trust more. They have a better solid running game. And this is a game where just basically, I don't think Carolina's going to do that well, just because they've lost too much talent, and the talent they have is not going to be sufficient enough. But they have enough talent to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because again, the biggest free agent they got was Julius Thomas, who now is out for the next 4 to 5 weeks due to him injuring his thumb, or breaking his thumb. Can Jacksonville put up a fight? They could. They might be motivated. Remember last year they were up 17-0 on the Eagles after the first quarter, after the first half, and they ended up outscoring them 34-0 in the second half. Ended up winning 34-17. So that's where I'll give Jacksonville a little bit of credit. But this one, Carolina just has way too much talent, even with all their injuries, to not beat a Jacksonville team. I think it should be a low-scoring defensive game. These are two good defensive minds. But Carolina just has more talent and more experience, and just a better kind of feel of team than Jacksonville does right now. And that's what I'm taking the Panthers to beat the Jaguars. Cleveland at the Jets. Kind of another Pittsburgh, New England, Kansas City, Houston type game. I am taking the New York Jets to win this game based on one factor. The New York Jets receivers will have a better option with their quarterback against the Cleveland secondary than Cleveland receivers will do against the Jets secondary. Because that's all I can think of that's different. The quarterbacks are about a crapshoot, even though I take Ryan Fitzpatrick. The running backs, you have 2 running back by committees. You got Crowell and you have 2 duos. You have Crowell and Johnson and Stacy and Ivory in the Jets. And in the offensive lines, I think Cleveland has the far better line. The Jets have some decent offensive line. And then the defenses, the linebacking core, the secondaries, they're just about good. But it just came down to me as wide receiver. The New York Jets have a clear advantage at wide receivers with Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, and Jeremy Curley. You add a Jeff Cumberland, who's a little bit of an underrated tight end. I think he can go against that, the safeties the Jets have. And I just believe that, again, the Jets just have that edge off of that. That's the only reason why I'm taking them. I really can't say the other way why the other team would not win. But I'm taking the Jets because they have the better wide receivers to go up against the Browns secondary than the Browns do a wide receiver going up against the Jets secondary. That's what it comes down to me, because all the other matchups are about even. So that's why I'm taking the Jets to beat the Browns. Sorry guys, my nose is still a little stuffed up from allergies. So that's why I might be wetting my nose occasionally through this video. Miami at Washington. I'm taking Miami just based on overall team chemistry and solidarity. Because, Miami didn't really add a lot during the offseason. They got one big fish in the Ndamukong Suh. And, congrats for, and I did not mean that to be a joke. But congrats on them, getting Suh. I thought they overpaid Suh a bit. Because I don't think he's a J.J. Watt type of guy. I don't think he's that effective on defense. He's not the greatest leader of people. He's kind of he's his own man. And also, he just doesn't fit the Miami image. Like, when you think of Miami Dolphins, you think of, like, Dan Marino. You think of cool, laid-back guys that just have this cool vibe to them, and Ndamukong Suh is kind of more of an Oakland or a Detroit kind of guy with his smug attitude and his dirtiness of playing. So I kind of feel that definitely he will be very, unfortunately, overvalued as time goes on. And also they re-signed Ryan Tannehill to a 6-year contract, which I think right now is the worst quarterback extension in the NFL today, because if you're telling me a man that is not a winning quarterback can get $96 million, they're every other quarterback based on resume. Not statistics, because again, you could say, well, he has better statistics than a lot of these quarterbacks. But on resume, he is the worst one. Because nobody that has not even had a winning record should deserve $96 million getting paid. So right now, he is the lowest barrel. The only guy I can think of right now that's active that could get a long-term extension that I put over Ryan Tannehill is Sam Bradford. Because at least Ryan Tannehill has won a game. Sam Bradford hasn't, but I digress. But I'm going to take Miami to win this game just because Washington just has so much dysfunction. You know, you have RG3 and his whole perspective of, Robert's going to be our starter, Jay Gruden says in February. And as you go through the year, as you go through the offseason, you still hear Robert being the starter. But what happens? Robert struggles through the first 2 games, and then it comes to a point where he gets a concussion. The Redskins that week say that he is cleared to play that Thursday. The very next day, they reverse and say he's not cleared and he will not play Saturday. Kirk Cousins then gets the opportunity to start against the first team offense of the Ravens, or the first team defense of the Ravens. He wins the job, and he doesn't win the job just for temporarily. He wins the job outright for the whole year, which I didn't quite get. And it's something about me that I just can't trust Kirk Cousins. Especially with that secondary, you got Brent Grimes. He can shut down one of their receivers effectively enough. And also, I just think that, again, the Dolphins' defense can shut down Morris enough to cause Cousins to make more mistakes. And I think the Dolphins can capitalize on enough of those mistakes for the Dolphins to get this victory out. It should be an interesting game because, again, Washington has a way better overall offense. But I just don't know with the guys running each offense and the defense they have. I think Miami just has a bit of a slighter edge in most of the matchups to give this victory to Miami. That's what I'm thinking. The Dolphins over the Redskins. Seattle over St. Louis. Again, this is a pretty easy pick. Seattle, I know their fans are excited to get back on the field. It's been 7 months since one of the worst call in Super Bowl history was made, and they just want to get past it. Again, the Seattle Seahawks lost some talent. They did. They lost James Carpenter, the left tackle, to the Jets. Byron Maxwell is now a Philadelphia Eagle. Walter Thurman, he was a Giant, but he's now on the Eagles. And now Cam Chancellor is holding out throughout the regular season. I think it's stupid, if you want my personal opinion, because Cam Chancellor still has 3 years left on this deal. If this was 1 year left, and I don't really condone holdouts anyway. If this was 1 year left, that'd be the only time where I can accept the holdout and say, or I can understand it and say he only has a year left. He doesn't feel he has any long-term security, which I would agree with. But again, still, even with all that going on, they brought in Jimmy Graham for a bargain, trading away Max Unger and a first-round pick, 31st overall. Even though again the Seahawks haven't had a first-round pick in 3 years, so I don't think they care. But when I just look at them, I just have to say with St. Louis really didn't improve enough to me to say that they're going to win this game. Their number 1 overall pick, Todd Gurley, who's coming off a torn ACL, will not play this weekend. And Trey Mason will be the guy. And I think Trey Mason's a solid running back. He's a good number 2 running back. But the issue is, to me, is Seattle really has no wide receiving threat that's going to be legit against that secondary. The number 1 receiver is Kenny Britt, who I had before he got a 2-year extension. He said a lot of mental issues, character issues due to his days at Rutgers in Tennessee. But I just look at this game and go, Seattle will be motivated because last time they were in St. Louis, they got they got gypped out of a game. They got gypped out of a game by the Rams, and they lost 28-26 last year. And also, I just think Seattle wants to make a good statement against this Rams team. And I just look everywhere and I say, Seattle has the edge in most of the areas of the game that I think that they can win this game. Best of luck to Nick Foles, in his first start. This is one of his biggest opportunities. He's got a great defense behind him. He's got a coaching staff that likes him, and a lot of guys on that team that like him as well. But at the end of the day, Seattle just has more talent, more to play for, and just a better aggression that I think that Seattle just can outplay St. Louis in a lot of ways. That physical football that they have. So that's the thing. The Seahawks over the Rams. Detroit over San Diego. Detroit just has more talent. Again, this is not one of those things. Again, this is week 1 picks, and you kind of have to look at it on paper. You kind of have to look at, you really can't see any, preseason footage counts for a little bit, but again, it's preseason, so nobody really, after the second team, nobody really sees those guys because those are the backups. Then unless somebody gets hurt, which happens a lot every week, you're going to see them come out. I just think, again, San Diego really didn't improve enough to me for me to be sold on them being a legitimate, a legitimate Super Bowl team or an AFC West team. They're going to be back in that wildcard position once again this year because the only things that you picked up are Melvin Gordon and Stevie Johnson, which, again, they're not bad. I'm a Melvin Gordon fan. I think he'll be effective for San Diego. When you're going up against the Detroit front seven, good luck running through that. And also, I don't buy Malcolm Floyd, Keenan Allen going up against that secondary to be any bit effective enough. Also, I just look at San Diego and go, you don't have any legitimate big playmaker on defense besides Eric Weddle. Congrats to Melvin Ingram getting his 5th-year option picked up. Congrats on Corey Legit getting a new 6-year, $50 million contract. Good for you guys. But I'm taking Detroit just because, again, the secondary is a bit better than San Diego's. The wide receiving core is better. I think the running game can do enough. And Stafford just has a better vibe, kind of an open area. Even again, I think they said last year that Stafford doesn't win that many road games against above 500 teams, or above 500 in playoff teams. And last year this team was above 500, so maybe Stafford can get his first win ever in that regard. But I think Detroit gets this win based on they'll be able to stop the run enough. Their secondary can do enough to hold Rivers down. And the San Diego offensive line, which is still a bit shaky, will get to Phillip Rivers and cause a rough day for him so the Lions can win this game. That's what I get Detroit over San Diego. Arizona over New Orleans. Arizona is just a better equipped team. Arizona, I've been a big fan of theirs for the last 2 years now. Bruce Arians has done a phenomenal job. He's won Coach of the Year 2 of the last 3 years. Even though, again, they didn't really add a lot of great talent. Again, I think the biggest piece they got was Mike Iupati, which is definitely going to help with their running game. They really didn't address the running back situation throughout the whole offseason. 2 guys they have are Andre Ellington and Chris Johnson. Not a good 1-2-headed punch I would want to keep because I don't see that much of a difference. And I guess Andre would be more power and Johnson would be more speed, but I just don't buy those two. When you're talking about a New Orleans Saints team, this New Orleans Saints team that no longer has Jimmy Graham. They also have lost Keenan Lewis, one of their top corners for 6 weeks. They cut John Baptiste, one of their safeties. Brandon Browner signed, but I don't think, they want him to be the number 1. I think he will be the number 1 corner, but if you don't have Keenan Lewis, that's going to be tough against Fitzgerald and Floyd, who might be able to come back from his hand injury this week. But then you have John Brown and J.J. Nelson in the slot. Jarris Byrd is still on the, possibly, he's still on the active roster, but he's not going to play for a bit. And I just think, again, Arizona, they're going to be motivated. They can use the last time they played each other. New Orleans blew them out a couple years ago. So I think, again, at home, it's going to be a great feeling. And I think, again, Arizona right now, on most bases, the running game's kind of equal out. It's just a more talented team. And I think Carson Palmer with this offense can get through that New Orleans secondary, which has been shredded by most of the offenses in the preseason this year. And I think Carson Palmer will have his way with it just like everybody else has for the most part. Again, I think it's an offensive shootout type game because his issue Breeze, I'm not going to count him out, but with the teams around them, Arizona can stop the bleeding a little bit more than New Orleans can. And that's why the Cardinals will beat the Saints in this game. Cincinnati and Oakland, I'm taking the Bengals based on talent. Again, Oakland's really done a good job, this offseason. They have Derek Carr, who I'm a fan of. I think he could actually to be one of the better quarterbacks they've had in a very long time. You have Latavius Murray, who they're high on. They drafted Amari Cooper. You signed Michael Crabtree. You keep Justin Tuck, Charles Woodson. You have this core of great young talent and veteran talent all forming together to make a run for the Raiders for the first time to get a winning record in the last 10 years. Or last 12 years. But I just can't see them getting over this hump with the guys they have and with the culture they have compared to this Bengals team. Okay, look, the Bengals are under a lot more pressure. The Bengals, I don't really care what they do over the regular season because they made the playoffs 4 straight times and lost the first game 4 straight times. So they won 10, 11 games, they make the playoffs, bravo. They've done it the last, 4 years before that. So, but again, I just think Cincinnati, they have a better offensive line. The talent that they have on offense trumps anything that Oakland has overall. Way better running game. Jeremy Hill's going to have a monster year. And I also just think, again, it's kind of a motivational thing for Hugh Jackson, the Bengals offensive coordinator. They used to be the head coach of the Oakland Raiders in 2011. I still don't think he should have been fired because he at least went 500. And he went 6-0 in the division that year. I know he went 2-6 against the rest of right outside of the division, but I don't think anybody cares. But again, I think this game can be competitive. Oakland can definitely surprise people, and they may be able to pull this one out. But I think Cincinnati, just based on talent, defensive line, and secondary, and just overall ability as a quarterback and team, the Bengals have this one just by an edge. Or by a bit of an edge. So I'm taking the Bengals over the Raiders. Ravens and Broncos, I'm taking the Broncos to win this game based on Denver at home with Manning. Both teams, have their ups and downs. I think we have a better running game. The Ravens do. And I think we have a better offensive line coming in right now than they do because they've lost a lot of offensive line guys. Ryan Clady, one of their other guards, got out. They just picked up Evan Mathis. They have Louis Vasquez, who I'm a big fan of, Pro Bowl guard. We have Marshall Yanda. But also I think Gary Kubiak, he's comfortable here. He also knows us. He was with us last year, and I think he knows what we want to do. And also I think he might know Mark Trestman a bit. So, and again, it just comes down to I don't think Rashad Perryman is going to play, and even if he does play, he's not going to have enough of an effect on their corners to be a big enough impact to win this game. And again, this is kind of a rubber match for Ravens fans and Broncos fans, because in the last 2 times we played them, a few years ago, we beat them to get to the Super Bowl off the Hale Flacco throw, and then the year after that, opening week 1, we lost to them when Manning threw 7 touchdowns and we got blown out. So this is the rubber match for everybody. And I think, again, at the end of the day, we just overall talent, we might have some edges. Denver has more edges in secondary, linebackers, and defensive line than we do overall. And that's what I'm going to take them. I'm going to take the home points here, too, just based on Denver just has slightly better in most phases of the game that I don't think we can overcome with the team we have right now. So that's what I'm making the Denver Broncos to beat the Ravens. Bucs over Titans. Talent. I know Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston. This is very cool. The number 1 and number 2 overall picks are going to go at each other the first week of the year. And it's just to me where I think Mariota has looked better as a quarterback in the preseason, but Mariota doesn't have enough talent overall with the weapons he'll have than Winston does with his. You could argue that Mariota may be the better pure quarterback, but you need the weapons that the quarterback needs to be effective. And when you have guys like Dorial Green-Beckham, Kendall Wright, Justin Hunter, Delaney Walker, I'll take whatever Tampa has on offense over what the Titans have. Because again, they just traded for Terrence West, and he'll probably be the starting running back because David Cobb is on IR of his shoulder. That's why, that's the thing. I think Mariota right now looks a lot better than Winston does. But the key thing for me is Winston has more talent to make more plays and has more playmakers to make plays than Mariota does with his plays. And also, I think Lovey will challenge him. He'll throw a lot of that cover 2 out to confuse him. Again, it's rookie on rookie perspective. But Tampa has just a better overall talent at the skill positions that I would need, that I think I could beat Mariota, even with maybe his more polished arm and more sense. Again, it should be a great game. I'm excited. But again, it's definitely bragging rights for either fan base or either guy to start. But I think Tampa gets this one. I think Winston, even though with his slower delivery, will have enough defensive plays, and he will be able to make more throws and more plays to his playmakers than Mariota will to his. So that's how I'm taking the Bucs to beat the Titans. Cowboys over Giants. this is like this is injury to me. Both teams have had their ups and downs. The Cowboys really can't find a running game. The Giants have a stable backs themselves, but most of them are pretty healthy. The Giants have had a horrible defensive problem at safety. I think they lost 4 safeties in a span of 13 days, which is unheard of. And they just let go of Stevie Brown today, so it looks like the two guys are going to have a Brandon Merriweather and a Collins. Not a bad duo, but not the most intimidating one. And also, I just feel that Victor Cruz's injury, along with that shaky offensive line, is enough for that Cowboys defense to make an impact. Look, I understand the Cowboys have lost some talent as well. Their big loss was Orlando Scandrick tearing his ACL. And you want to see how the running back committee does with Darren McFadden, Joseph Randle, Gus Johnson, and Christian Michael. But I think Dallas at home, they have played each other 3 of the last 4 home openers, or 3 of the last 4 week ones, and Dallas has won the last 2 games. And overall, Dallas has won 5 of the last 6 meetings between these two teams. So I'm just going to use that momentum and also just try to see how the Dallas Cowboys can have a home field advantage. It'd be a great start to right off the bat, week 1, get their first home win of the year, because they had a much tougher time at home than on the road in Dallas. You know, by beating these Giants and getting to 2, 4, 5 straight wins, or getting to 6 straight wins over the New York Giants. Again, it should be a competitive game. I still think Eli, you have Randall, you have OBJ, who's going to be big, and you do have a decent defensive line. I just think, again, the Cowboys, the Giants' offensive line, combined without no Victor Cruz and the secondary issues, can give Romo the edge to outshoot this game in another classic Eli-Romo battle. That's what I'm thinking, the Cowboys to beat the Giants. Eagles at Falcons. I'm taking the Eagles. In this one, kind of hurts me a little bit. I'm not a big Sam Bradford fan. I think Sam Bradford has been overrated for like the last 3 years. People say that the Rams don't have a lot of talent around them, but yet he, over the last 2 years when Sam Bradford was out, the 7-9 Rams beat the 11-5 Colts and Saints with Kellen Clemens as their quarterback. And last year they beat the Super Bowl teams, Seattle and Denver respectively, with Austin Davis and Sean Hill. So if you're telling me that this Rams team is not talented, how could you explain that teams led by those quarterbacks? And again, you could talk about the defense and offensive lines, and I get that. How could those guys get wins over those teams, and that team is still considered bad, and he didn't have enough talent? Okay, so there's that. And again, the Rams' offensive line, 3 of those 4 years, was no less ranked than the top half of the league. So he didn't have the best offensive line, but he had an offensive line that was decent enough to be, average, do a little bit above average. And again, Steven Jackson ran for 1,000 yards each of 3 years. You could argue that 1,000 yards means nothing now, but still. So I think everybody giving Sam Bradford a pass really should look at those statements I just made and realize how good was that Rams team actually. Again, they only won 6 games, but those 6 games, they've only won 13 games over the last 2 years, but 4 of those 13 wins are pretty impressive. And I keep going on some of the other games, but as much as I maybe have a disdain for Sam Bradford, and I do believe they should have kept Tim Tebow on the roster, but that's a whole other thing that I'll get into later. I do think that Philadelphia, he's looked very good at this preseason. Actually, in fact, there was one team that's been the most impressive this preseason. It's been the Philadelphia Eagles. And I just think, again, they have most of their defensive line intact. I think that their secondary will be improved. I look at Philadelphia. Of course, the quarterback edge goes to Atlanta. The wide receiver edge goes to Atlanta. But having no run game and having no front seven, especially with the defense they have, especially with Brooks Reed now being out for 6 weeks, I got to take Philly's defense to outplay Atlanta's. I think Philly will get 1 or 2 turnovers and they'll get 1 or 2 stops, especially with Atlanta's weak running game led by Antone Smith and Telvin Coleman. I think Philadelphia will win this game. As much as it pains me, I'm being completely objective as I always have been. Philadelphia will win this game based on having a better defense having a better edge at running game, and I think those are going to be the two big things that win this game. I think Sam Bradford can make some throws. And again, that's the key thing. I think Sam Bradford, if he can stay healthy and be effective, I might change my complete tune about it. But, as much as I will say, I do want Atlanta to win. Just for my own understanding about Sam Bradford. I'm going to take Philadelphia to win this game because they have a lot more talent around them. And I think if Bradford's offensive line can hold him, and again, they don't really have that much of a rush from Atlanta's overall, pass rush. Sam Bradford should be able to outplay Matt Ryan and his team in Atlanta Monday night. Should be a good game. I'm excited. Best of luck to both teams, though. And then the last game, Minnesota and San Francisco. I'm taking Minnesota just because of San Francisco's loss of talent. San Francisco lost way too much talent to me, from Jim Harbaugh, their head coach, to Anthony Davis, to Justin Smith, to Aldon Smith, to Ahmad Brooks. Well, no, Ahmad Brooks is still there, but that's right, he hasn't been suspended. Ray McDonald, Patrick Willis, Chris Borland, Chad Dalton, well, they cut him. Stevie Johnson, Chris Culliver, Parrish Cox. You can go on and on. I think they've lost about 16, 17 people. And I just can't buy that ability. You've lost too much leadership and talent for me to say that against the Minnesota team that's on the rise. They added guys like Eric Kendricks, Mike Wallace. They're getting Adrian Peterson back. They have Kyle Rudolph healthy. I don't know how long that's going to last, but I think Minnesota has enough overall talent to be able to run the ball through San Francisco. Teddy Bridgewater can make some plays against that secondary, and Minnesota is going to pull out this win and show a big statement to the Niners. This is going to be a long year and a long time for Jim Tomsula to have to rebuild this Niners team to an image of what Jim Harbaugh had. So that's it. So thanks, guys. So like, comment, rate, subscribe to all my old subscribers, to everybody new watching. Sorry I sound like this. I think my nose has been stuffed up for the last little bit while I'm recording these videos. So that's why I sound like this. And yeah, so best of luck to all the teams. Best of luck to all the players. Best of luck to all fantasy players, including myself. I got 2 leagues going. And best of luck to everybody out there. And that's it. So until next week, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off, wishing all the fellow prognosticators good luck, and wishing everybody a happy, exciting, and fun NFL season. Till then, so long.